I just have a question because I think there's a lot of confusion right now about what the hell's going on here. So I'd like to ask you, what are we doing here procedurally? I mean, I've heard rumors of gaveling in and gaveling out so that we could vote on the rule tonight, like we have some time machine. I've also heard that we may take the rule to the floor tomorrow morning. Can we get some clarification on what the hell the plan is? Because every hour Republicans drag this stunt out means more chaos, more lines at the airport, more federal workers not getting paid, more Americans getting screwed over. So what is the game plan? Are we going to adjourn and make believe that in an hour or on a different day, or are we going to vote on all this stuff tomorrow?
Mr. McGovern, you've been around a long time, and you know that there are different roles for our different people and our different committees to play. The Rules Committee is here to pass a rule. The majority leader makes decisions on when to call bills up and when to call rules up. So you'll have to...
Well, you're a lot more patient Rules Chair than I was, Madam Chair, because to be honest with you, I mean, if I were about to report a rule out, I'd like to know, am I going to the floor today? Or am I going to go to the floor tomorrow? Or are we going to the floor on Monday? And I think there are a lot of members on both the House, both the Republican and the Democratic side, who are just trying to figure out, like, do we cancel all of our late-night flights tonight? Do we cancel our flights tomorrow? I mean, so you have no idea when we report this rule out, when it might be brought to the floor?
I might have an idea.
Well, and you're not allowed to inform? Is that a radical, subversive thing? I mean, just
help us here today with getting through this rule quickly, and the quicker we get it done, the quicker we'll all know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, again, if anybody's watching, what? Yeah, well, I'd like to know that we'll be getting out tonight. Look, I mean, this is not a game and it's not a joke. I mean, people are getting screwed over because of what you're doing here today. And the idea that we have no idea when we might even bring this up, I mean, I mean, like that's some sort of subversive, like secret thing that no one's supposed to know. The American people are not allowed to know when we might want to bring this to the floor. I mean, I'm sorry that you find that unreasonable. I mean, I just think it's a common sense, basic question that everybody, I don't care what your political persuasion may be, should get an answer to. And we can't get an answer to that.
Well, as I said, help us get through this as quickly as possible, and then we'll all know what's going on.
Well, let me just say we would have been helpful to get through this, all of this easily, if you just took what the Senate did in a bipartisan way. But you've chosen to go down a partisan pathway because you want to satisfy a group of wackos on the extreme right, and the hell with the American people. So no, forgive us, we're not going to go quietly here. We're going to fight, we're going to fight like hell. I yield back my time.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Without objection, any prepared statements that our witnesses may have will be included in the record. I now welcome our first panel, Chairman Cole and Ranking Member DeLauro from the Committee on Appropriations. Always happy to see you.
Good to see you, Madam Chair. Chairwoman,
Your full statement will be submitted for the record. We ask you summarize your statement in 5 minutes. Chairman Cole, I welcome your testimony.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Chairwoman Fox, Ranking Member McGovern, members of the Rules Committee, I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. Come before you today on Senate Amendment to H.R. 7147, the Further Additional Continuing Appropriations Act of 2026. This is now the fourth time I've appeared before you in recent weeks to discuss funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Let me briefly recap how we got to this point. In January, appropriations negotiators, both Republicans and Democrats from both the House and the Senate, reached a final agreement on our final 6 appropriations bills for year 2026. Thanks to our friends on the Rules Committee, we were able to fulfill requests from both House Democrats, who wanted a separate vote on the Homeland Security title, and from the Senate, who wanted us to send over the final 6 bills as one package. The House did its part, passed these 6 bills, and sent them to the Senate as one package. Sadly, over the intervening weekend, Senator Schumer and Senate Democrats decided that the deal that they had agreed to was no longer good enough. They broke their word and reneged on the deal. While they would pass the other 5 bills as they had previously accepted, they would now only support a short 2-week CR for the Department of Homeland Security. Predictably, the 2-week CR came and went without Senate Democrats agreeing to a full-year funding bill. And so, beginning on Valentine's Day of this year, the Department of Homeland Security entered a lapse in appropriations, or to use the term that everyone understands, a shutdown. This, of course, followed a previous shutdown last fall, again instigated by Senate Democrats. As a consequence, as of tomorrow, the Department of Homeland Security has been shuttered by Senate Democrats for 50% of the fiscal year, leaving DHS personnel and critical missions in limbo. Employees have been reporting to work without pay and causing chaos at the department charged with protecting the homeland. Indeed, in the last few weeks, we've witnessed the consequences of this decision. Many employees in mission-critical roles, such as Transportation Security Administration agents, Secret Service agents, and the brave service members of the United States Coast Guard, have continued to work without guaranteed pay and without full operational resources. Airports across the country are feeling the brunt, with lines stretching outside the airport to clear security. Employees at the TSA are having to take radical action to make ends meet, such as donating plasma, even as they continue to show up to work without pay. By today, Senate Democrats will have denied over 80,000 American families more than $1 billion in take-home pay. These are people who are still showing up for their shifts. The numbers are even higher when you include furloughed employees. While the state of affairs was acceptable to Senate Democrats, who were reportedly, quote, very serene with the shutdown, as one Democratic senator said, it was not acceptable to House Republicans. And so we've now passed through the House, the final negotiated full-year Homeland Security funding bill 3 different times. And to be clear, what we passed each time is the same funding bill that Senate Democrats agreed to before flip-flopping, the same agreed-upon funding levels, the same agreed-upon policy changes, the needed funding for body cameras for DHS law enforcement, all of it. Every last word was negotiated upon and agreed upon between the parties before Senator Schumer went back on his word. In the middle of the night, with the smell of jet fumes in the air, the Senate passed an amendment to H.R. 7147 and sent it back to the House, once again telling the House to take it or leave it because the Senate was leaving town. Madam Chair, we often hear from our constituents of how sick they are of bills that are written and passed in the dead of night. The Senate amendment that was sent to us early this morning is a case in point for why that is so. Instead of fulfilling the bicameral and bipartisan bargain that was struck months ago, the Senate amendment instead stripped out all funding for the U.S. Border Patrol and for the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, effectively defunding these 2 agencies. If allowed to become law, this would prevent all border non-law enforcement personnel and all ICE non-law enforcement personnel from being paid and would defund day-to-day operations of both agencies. Madam Chair, this is completely unacceptable to House Republicans. We cannot and will not support any bill that defunds the defense of our national borders. While it may be news to the Senate to hear this, the Constitution gives both the House of Representatives and the Senate an equal say in this matter, and we will not pass an unacceptable bill simply because the Senate wants to leave town. And so I appear before you today in support of House amendment to the Senate amendment to H.R. 7147, which will provide a continuing resolution for the Department of Homeland Security through May 22nd. This will end the pointless shutdown at the Department of Homeland Security. It will provide back pay for employees who have not been paid and will ensure that TSA can return to full operational status at airports. And it will allow DHS to continue to defend our national borders against narco-traffickers, terrorists, and other evildoers, and will ensure that the homeland is protected. It doesn't selectively decide which parts of Homeland Security matter. Rather, it ensures critical missions and personnel are resourced and ready. I urge my colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, to do the right thing and support this bill. I thank each of you for your time. I urge all members to support this bill. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Ranking Member DeLauro, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chairman Fox, and thank you, Ranking Member McGovern. Thank you, members of the committee, and my friend, Chairman Cole. I think I'm in the movie Groundhog Day, but nevertheless, we proceed. Just for the record, let us be very, very clear. ICE and CBP are 85% funded. They are funded. If there's concern about them doing their job, get them the hell out of the airports where they're doing nothing and getting paid while TSA workers are not getting paid and trying to do their job, and get them to where they can do their job. They are funded. I think we have to keep repeating that. They are not suffering an iota of economic insecurity. I have to be honest, I really am at a loss. Last night, the United States Senate unanimously passed a bill to end the shutdown at the Department of Homeland Security. A bill that was engineered by Majority Leader Thune. Senate Republicans support the bill. Senate Democrats support the bill. House Democrats support the bill. The White House, though you're never sure where they're going to come out, at the outset was supporting the bill. Don't know where they are now, but that's always a crapshoot. We never know what the hell is going on there. How often do we get unanimous consent in this body, in this environment? My God, the earth should shake. You know, it was just an unbelievable moment. No one, they hotlined it. No one disagreed. Whoa. It's extraordinary. But I have to say is, unanimous vote comes to the House, Senate, we for it. That's the way the system works. It's the way the system works. But House Republicans alone have said no. What they have said is, let's keep the shutdown going. Let us continue to withhold paychecks from TSA workers. It's okay if they sleep in their cars. It's okay if they're getting paid for plasma. It's okay if they're frightened to death about evictions, what they're going to do for their families and their kids. It's okay. Extend the long lines at airports. Prolong the chaos and the uncertainty that this shutdown has caused. Leave Americans economically burdened and poorer. So what are we considering here today? An entirely different piece of legislation altogether. It is an almost 2-month continuing resolution, one that does not have buy-in from anyone other than House Republicans. It has a 0 chance of becoming law. Again, 0 chance of becoming law. It serves no purpose other than to prolong this shutdown for almost 2 months, and a shutdown that has already gone on long enough. The Senate has gone home. They are not passing anything. They did their job, striking an agreement that passed unanimously. This shutdown rests squarely on the shoulders of the House Republican leadership. They were offered a bipartisan bill that the president indicated he would sign, and they still rejected it. This is no way to govern, but quite frankly, I don't believe that the House majority wants to govern. I've heard so much from so many of my Republican colleagues throughout this shutdown about how they cannot imagine how Democrats can look TSA agents in the eye as we go through security, and how it is a disgrace and all of the rest of it. And here we are with a deal that everyone has agreed to, and they are still saying no. TSA agents will know who was responsible to holding their paychecks up. I return the question to my colleagues of how will you look those agents in the eye as you fly home for spring break? Kicking the can down the road for 60 days is not a viable solution by any stretch of the imagination. My colleague and friend, Chairman Cole, and I have long agreed that continuing resolutions are not the way to govern. It is always better to do the hard work of legislating, of negotiating, of forging a compromise. The bill the Senate passed is a product of that process. It is a bipartisan solution that was arrived at after many long hours of negotiating. Ultimately, yes, between Democrats and Republicans, but, as I said, a bill engineered by Senate Republicans and the majority leader. It is the only viable option before us. I want to be clear that Chairman Cole is a man of his word. My frustration today is with Speaker Johnson and with House leadership, who, in my opinion, are making a catastrophic mistake. This is an inexcusable failure of leadership. This is not how you get things done in this body. House Republican leadership are refusing to take yes for an answer, and the American people are going to continue paying the price for that. The White House apparently believes they have the authority to pay TSA workers. If they do, then every day for the past 40-plus days, they made a conscious decision not to pay them. And the TSA administrator not 2 days ago said the department made the decision not to pay TSA workers. They are picking and choosing which workers they think deserve to be paid. I think the public ought to decide which of us they think ought to be paid for the jobs that are being done here. Most staff at CBP and ICE and the Coast Guard and the Secret Service are already being paid, but TSA workers have been singled out, held hostage, pawns in a political game. And as the ranking member said, this is not a game, playing with people's lives. It is shameful, and these folks are somehow undeserving. That is shameful. And I am prepared to answer your questions. I thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. DeLauro. Chairman Cole, I agree with you that generally our colleagues have an aversion to passing bills, to voting for bills passed in the dark of the night or the dead of the night, as you said. And I appreciate very much your giving us that little reminder about how Mr. Schumer and others went back on their word when we were negotiating the full appropriations bills. And we were all ready to fund all of Homeland Security. I also find it a little interesting that Ranking Member DeLauro now is saying the ICE agents should be back out in the field when
They're being
the
paid for
Democrats
it.
have been screaming about taking them out of the field. But
Nobody
would
no
you
one has said that.
explain how the Senate amendment defunds immigration and custom enforcement and Custom and Border Patrol? Because I think that has not been as clear to the American people as it should be.
Let me begin, Madam Chair, if I may, just by reading a portion of Section 4 of the explanatory statement about the bill. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. That I think sums it up pretty well, and it, this is what the author's intent was in the bill. The contents printed under the heading United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Security Operations under the heading U.S. Customs and Border Protection shall have no force or effect for purposes of this act, and amounts specified in the final bill column under the subheading Border Security Operations, under the heading U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and under the heading U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the Department of Homeland Security Act of 2026, table shall be $0. $0. Now, what does that mean? We're hearing that these other agencies have been funded. Parts of them have been funded. Additional technology, finishing the wall, but the day-to-day operations aren't funded in those bills. So this moves you to $0. The other thing I would say about the legislation, if it's a great piece of legislation, nobody in the United States Senate read it. They were writing it at midnight last night. There were 5 senators on the floor when they passed by unanimous consent. No, I will bet you over 90 senators have not read this bill, over 90. And I will bet you their staff have not had a chance because most of them were at home in bed where they should have been as well. And then it's kicked over here in the dead of night with no discussion with anybody on our side of the chamber, maybe in either party. I could only speak for my own. I can certainly assure you there was none. I can tell you, because I talked to a number of senators, that they were unaware of this themselves. So that's no way to legislate. Again, we had an agreement with the Senate. It was an agreement they agreed to. We agreed to the language. It was compromise language. They didn't get everything we wanted. They wanted. We didn't get everything we wanted, but it was language they agreed to. They told us the form they wanted it in and said, if it comes in that form, we will pass it. And that's what they got, and then they broke their word. We've offered them 3 opportunities now to go back and do what they said they were going to do. What we got back was something, I would not vote for something, to tell you the truth, that said I was going to give 0 money for border security and homeland security. 0. On the idea that maybe it's funded, some of it is, some of it isn't. We do have the executive branch trying to do the right thing, but this is preeminently a legislative matter. We should just do our job, keep our agreements, and pass it, and we have the opportunity to do that. The Senate bill doesn't do that, at all. And frankly, anybody that thinks it got any serious consideration in the United States Senate, I would like to tell me, where was the committee hearing on the bill or the amendment? Where was the discussion? Tell me the senators that were awake at 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's not what happened. And that's no way to legislate for the greatest power on the planet and the oldest democracy in existence. It's a mockery of the legislative process, and frankly, it's not something anybody should be comfortable voting for.
Thank you very much. From a great historian, thank you for explaining the process. Mr. McGovern, you're recognized.
Mr. Cole, do you know when we're going to vote on this on the floor?
I do not. I would assume as quickly as possible, but I don't have any specific information.
Did you do a hearing on the CR? Was there a hearing on this bill that you just?
No, there was not.
Okay, yeah. And,
Because I don't think you need a hearing when you're saying we're going to
I
just continue exactly what's
But
happening.
what the Senate did basically is what we've been doing on and on and on and on with Mr. Loro's amendment that basically funds all lawful agencies within the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's not a new phenomenon. So I just wanted to know that. And this idea that we don't like bills that are passed in the middle of the night. I just remind all my colleagues that I think I remember correctly, the big ugly bill was passed at a time when it was prime time in Guam, but nobody seemed to have any problem with that whole effort. But Mr. Loro, I wasn't very good in arithmetic, but I just want to clarify for the record, when Chairman Cole keeps on talking about, and Chairman Fox about defunding ICE, I mean, am I right? Was money funded for ICE in the Big Ugly Bill?
My gosh, you got $75 billion for ICE, $65 billion for CBP, and no one has suggested. The legislation, the piece that I introduced said, let's continue the negotiations with ICE and CBP. But that is within the appropriations portion of the bill, that in fact, we would not provide the money until there was the overhaul, but let's fund everyone else. They have the money, and they have a $10 billion slush fund. A $10 billion slush fund, which they can use in any way they want to.
And in the Senate bill, is there a provision that clawbacks the ICE and CBP money that was in the Big Ugly Bill?
No. No, the money is there.
Okay. So, again, just basic arithmetic, this has not been defunded. So I'm having trouble following that argument. You know, and Mr. Lauro, Chairman Cole keeps on talking about the deal that Schumer and others seem to have had on DHS. Am I correct that that was before ICE and CBP murdered two people?
Yes.
Two American citizens?
That's right.
Yeah. And I know, I think we all agree that the murder of two Americans is a big deal. You know, it should give us pause.
BFD.
Should ask us to want to review whether or not we're spending money wisely. I mean, isn't that the reason why there's been kind of a reconsideration of how we should approach the agencies?
Exactly right.
And, you know, and Democrats have been asking for major reforms in ICE and CBP.
Well, it's not Democrats. The major reforms have come from the American public.
Absolutely.
How about we not try to detain and deport American citizens? How about we not go to sensitive locations, schools, hospitals, medical facilities? How do we not have a warrant before we pick up somebody or kick their door down? How do we say, don't wear a mask, let's be identified?
But I think it's important for people, the American people, to understand, like, you know, what my Republican friends think is controversial. Like, you know, having a judicial warrant before you can knock down somebody's door. I mean, I don't know, I thought you guys all cared about civil liberties. I thought, you know, I mean, I've talked to some of you on FISA, and you're asking, some of you support warrants, but yet, I mean, that's one of the things that we're asking for, and yet that's a radical idea, you know, or before you get picked up and hauled away and separated from your family and put in a vehicle to go God knows where, that the person who's doing that has an obligation to tell you who they are and what they're doing. I mean, and that's one of the reforms that you all think is too radical, or that we shouldn't deport U.S. citizens. Boy, that's a real radical idea, right? I mean, those are some of the things that, you know, we've been trying to negotiate with this administration, who has no interest in negotiating because they don't really give a damn about any of this stuff. I mean, they just don't. And I've been to detention centers. I don't know whether some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have been to detention centers. I've seen detention centers that include full families that have been following all the rules, that have been doing everything right, and then all of a sudden get picked up without any explanation, and they find themselves in a jail. I mean, like, really? That's what we're all think is okay? Mr. Lauro, you know, if we were to bring the Senate bill to the floor that is similar to your bill, do you believe that any Republicans would support the bill?
I really do. I think there would be bipartisan support because it is, and this is not self-serving. I believe it was a reasonable approach to dealing with what is a difficult problem where people had real concerns about ICE and CBP, but no one really wants to hold hostage, whether it is FEMA, Coast Guard, TSA, cybersecurity, et cetera. I also might add, and I'm going to quote Senator Susan Collins, who was chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. This is her statement on the Senate vote to pass the Department of Homeland Security funding package. Passage of this package brings us closer to ending a reckless and harmful shutdown. Today's action moves us closer to ending the shutdown, which has caused chaos It is moving, it says this is the way we need to move forward.
And is Susan Collins a Republican?
Yes,
And do you believe that she's familiar with the bill that the Senate passed last night? Or do you agree with Chairman Cole that she probably didn't read it?
no, if I know, and I think that the chairman would agree to this because all four corners have sat down numerous times, and Senator Collins, I am sure, has gone very thoroughly through what was out there.
I'll let Senator Collins speak for herself,
Okay.
but I spoke to her last night, and she was not aware of this bill. She
Then
was
she
not
issued that-
talked to
then she
about
issued
it.
this statement?
Well, these are her words.
Okay, these are-
I've not
When?
made this up. This is today, 3/27/26, Washington, D.C. Senator
today.
Collins' statement on
What- is it-
passage
is
of
it-
DHA's
so
funding
this year,
package.
it's this day,
This
today?
moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
Wow,
today the
That's
27th?
an interesting observation.
Whoa.
And does anyone dispute the fact that reports say that when this vote took place on the Senate floor last night, that the Republican Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, was on the floor?
And he doesn't know anything about what's in the bill? Give me a break.
Anybody dispute that?
No.
Because,
Would the gentleman yield?
yeah, happy to yield.
Well, not just Senator Thune, but Senator Schmidt was on the floor. Senator Moreno, Republican of Ohio, was presiding in the Senate. So this fiction that somehow the Senate Republicans had no idea what they were
No.
doing. I yield back to the
No,
chair.
and that's a very good point, because you remind us that the Republicans do control the Senate, right? Because they were presiding. And I don't know whether, Speaker Johnson, has one of these devices. Like, I mean, everybody has them now. I mean, and you can communicate with one another. And the House Majority Leader, or the Republican leadership. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader don't talk, or that Republicans don't talk to their Senate counterparts. I will tell you, as a Democrat, I talk to my counterparts in the Senate all the time. I've even reached out to Senate Minority Leader Schumer on occasion. I talk to Senator Durbin. I talk to them all the time about stuff that I'm concerned about. And the notion that the Republican House leadership was just caught off guard, that they had no idea that anything was happening. I mean, I said at the beginning that I think this leadership the House leadership is incompetent, but that even goes beyond incompetence. I just can't, that defies belief. And that the White House somehow had no clue that this was going on. And again, we have reports that Trump was saying, I would sign this
Said he would sign it.
last night. Let me just.
Can I just say this one thing? I was nervous because, and this is a couple of days ago, Senator Cruz was all over this. I said, my God, Senator Cruz and I have very little in common. And we were agreeing on the same direction in which to go in. So people understood and knew what was in this bill.
I would just close with this. You know what? We can hide behind process. We can hide behind, all kinds of procedural rhetoric. And that's what ends up, that's what usually happens when my Republican friends don't want to talk about the real consequences behind what they're doing. What I care about are the people who are getting screwed, the people who are being jerked around.
TSA
The
employees.
TSA agents who aren't getting paid, the Coast Guard, the FEMA. I care about FEMA. I said this on the House floor, and my Republican friends say they care about FEMA, yet they said nothing when Kristi Noem wanted to zero out the agency and eliminate it. But we'll save that for more discussion later. But at the end of the day, what really matters is people. And we have an opportunity to help people. We had an opportunity to do it in a bipartisan way. And I think I know what was the last thing, but let me ask Chairman Cole, would you have any objection if we were to allow for there to be a vote on what the Senate did last night?
That's not for me to say, that's for this committee to decide.
But do you have an opinion?
No.
Oh, boy. You sounded like Speaker Johnson. He has an opinion on nothing. And I have to tell you, if you believe that, a short-term CR that funds agencies that have done horrific things to the American people, if that's the way you want to go, fine, go for it. But to not allow members, Democrats and Republicans, in the House the opportunity to vote on the bipartisan product that came out of the Senate last night, that will fund all lawful agencies. I just find that really undercutting not only kind of the House of Representatives, but, you know, we're supposed to be a deliberative body here, but really, it undercuts our democracy. And
No, my preferred course is to fund the full agency for the full fiscal
you can bring
year.
that bill to the floor. You have.
We
Many
have.
times.
We've brought
You
it
have.
repeatedly.
You
We've
have, but you
passed
don't have
it
the
3 or
vote. You don't
4
have the votes
times.
to do it.
We
You don't
have,
the
we'll
votes to
see
do
if we
it.
have the votes
So you've done it
today.
100 times, and, you know, you want to do it 101 times, and now we're doing it a short term.
We
thing
have a
again. You wanna keep
majority,
on doing
we
that
have a
and getting no
majority,
result.
well, we have a majority, yes, we do. We have a majority in both chambers
But you're
each
not
time we've
helping a
done it.
damn person in this country who's getting screwed over by
I'm not
the
the one who
incompetence of this
voted
House,
to shut down
not this
the
Congress.
agency.
Yeah,
You did.
You know what? Yes,
The gentleman speaking.
right. Well, okay, he just did, okay?
Well, you
Eh,
interrupted.
Do you want to say one more, anything
I
else?
said, I'm not the one who voted to shut down the agency. I voted to fund it every time.
Yeah, and by the way, it is my time. I just want to, okay, but I also want, I just want to say for the record, you are now. You are now. All of you are, by doing what you're doing. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what the result of this is going to be. You know exactly who's going to be hurt, and you continue to do it. So, as I said at the beginning of my opening remarks, you all own this. I yield back.
Ms. Fishbach, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm kind of surprised that this is a clean CR. This will make sure that folks are paid. This will be helping the people that Mr. McGovern is concerned that we are, quote unquote, I believe the word was screwing. But this will take care of that, will it not, Mr. Cole?
Correct.
And so I think this makes sense. We will then have 6 weeks to deal with things, to continue the negotiations, and there's some discrepancy about how it actually went down in the Senate, and so we can figure that out. But I just think this is the way that we are coming together to help those folks that aren't getting paid, that things aren't happening for. And I think we've been trying for several weeks to do something, but this makes sense. It is a simple, continuing resolution with nothing else, but it will help those people that Mr. McGovern continues to say he is concerned about. And I don't have any questions because I think it is that self-explanatory that this is going on, unless you had something to add to that, but.
No, I think you summed it up perfectly. We passed this legislation, everything will be fully funded.
Yep. And so with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Fishbach. Ms. Scanlon, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd first yield to the ranking member.
First of all, I just want to say, the gentlelady talks about there's a discrepancy of what happened in the Senate last night. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
No.
The Senate, by voice vote, passed a product that we are talking about trying to bring to the floor. There's no discrepancy over what happened. You know, they passed something. They passed something in a bipartisan way. I mean, so there's no discrepancy over that. Yeah, and, you know, and the only thing, you know, that's, well, you know, and the gentlelady talks about how, you know, a simple way to deal with this. I mean, you know, you know what is really simple is bringing the same thing up that you know is going to fail over and over and over again. It is clear that there are Democrats in the House and in the Senate who will not support unlawful agencies unless they are reformed. That is clear. You know that. You run everything. And if you want our votes, you either need to make these reforms or you need to remove them from the bill so that we can all vote to fund all these other agencies and departments. And you all know that. You all know that. The Senate Majority Leader, the Republican, knew that. And he brought this bill to the floor. He gets the schedule. By the way, when you're in charge,
Will the
you get to
gentleman
bring
yield?
things to the floor. I'm happy to yield to the gentlelady.
Are the reforms that you requested in the Senate bill? Yes or no?
No, they're not.
Okay, great.
No, but you know what? But in the Senate bill, neither is $1 more for the agencies that break the law. There's not $1 more for ICE, not $1 more for CBP. So yeah, I would like the reforms, and we're happy to continue to negotiate with you on that. But the bottom line, But the bottom line is this notion that Republicans have no control. You set the agenda. You set the agenda. The Senate Republican Majority Leader brought this to the floor. Not Chuck Schumer, not Jim McGovern, but your Republican Senate Majority Leader. And the deal is that the deal is that they had a unanimous voice vote. And we have Republican senators issuing statements today saying what is going on. But this is insane what you people are doing. It's shameful. I mean, I'm embarrassed for this institution by what is going on here. And I'm so sick and tired of regular people getting screwed over, and that's what's happening here. I thank the gentlelady for yielding. I yield back to her.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. I've been fielding calls and texts and emails from my constituents all morning. Generally, they were really relieved to hear that the Senate had finally taken action to fund TSA and the Coast Guard and FEMA, because that's what we've all been talking about for more than 40 days, that folks and parts of these agencies were not funded, unlike ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, which actually are funded, as the ranking member mentioned. So they were relieved to hear that there'd been Senate action, and were looking forward to the House moving forward. So like them, I'm a little surprised to find ourselves in this alternative universe where House Republicans are refusing to take yes for an answer. We should be voting on the bipartisan legislation that passed the Senate that would reopen and fund TSA, FEMA, and the Coast Guard, because we all know, all of us here know, that if that bill were put on the House floor, it would pass with a strong majority. I mean, it would pass. So I am not quite sure what this exercise is, but it appears that Speaker Johnson is playing politics
Ms.
in
Scanlon,
order to, yes,
would
ma'am?
you yield to a question?
I would be happy to yield to a
Thank
question
you.
from the chairwoman.
I think some of us are confused because Mr. McGovern just said that ICE and Border Patrol are getting not a penny, which confirmed what Mr. Cole said.
Thank you.
And yet you're saying.
I'd be happy to answer
Answer
your
that-
question.
answer the
That was
que-
a brief remark taken out of context. I think we can,
Sure.
the easy answer, of course,
They
is
have
that
the
there
money from the
was
big, beautiful bill,
funding.
which is the money that they're
But they weren't
utilizing.
funded in this.
Not
bill.
in an
I'm just-
appropriations bill, which is what it's about. But they
Ladies-
have serious money, $75 billion, $65 billion in the big, beautiful bill, and a $10 billion slush fund.
Look, I was making a different point, so I'll reclaim my time for now. But just, the point is that we could be voting on that bill. Speaker Johnson is playing some political games here to satisfy a small group of fringe extremists in the House Republican Conference. And in doing so, he's threatening the livelihood and well-being of millions of Americans. And he's doing so knowing that after the Senate unanimously passed this bill last night, or this morning, they left town for 2 weeks. So in choosing to go down this path, the Speaker is making a deliberate choice to prolong this partial shutdown, knowing that the Senate has already rejected the bill he intends to put on the floor, and that they aren't going to consider it for weeks. Every day, TSA employees, some Coast Guard service members, natural disaster first responders are going without pay, going without the resources they need to do their jobs. And we know, we've heard that some of these dedicated public servants have been forced to sleep in their cars, go without food, because their paychecks are being withheld. Hundreds have had no choice but to put their families first and leave TSA altogether to find other work, but that hurts all of us as well. So, Madam Chair, this shutdown has extended for more than 40 days. Very few Americans can go that long without a paycheck, and even fewer can understand how or why congressional Republicans have chosen not to act when there's a real opportunity to solve this problem and to do the right thing. Why are we wasting everyone's time? Why are we continuing to hang TSA workers and other federal employees out to dry on this pointless partisan exercise? For weeks, Republicans have withheld this funding to try to force Democrats to give more money, even more money, billions more, to a rogue agency that has cost American lives. So I would urge our Republican colleagues to reject this insanity and join Democrats in passing the Senate legislation. There is one point I was particularly interested in, Ranking Member DeLauro. We have heard repeatedly that there was some kind of reneging on a deal. And we've heard that, oh, it's very simple to just fund the government. But our Republican colleagues keep glossing over the fact that the turning point in this funding discussion was when American citizens were killed on American streets by masked and armed federal agents, and this administration has refused to put any guardrails around that behavior. So it's not as though things were just perking along with no changes. There was an outrageous assault on American values and American citizens that must be dealt with. So I would appreciate your observations on that.
On
as well as
January
anything
7th,
else.
Renee Nicole Good was murdered in Minneapolis. On January 24th, Alex Preddy was murdered in Minneapolis. American citizens murdered. Now, if that doesn't speak to making some changes in an agency, and both agencies involved, because, and I will just say, the commander, Bovino, he's the one who, was killed Preddy, and he was let go. Things have happened. It was not a static situation. It was a fluid situation, which is why, given the contention and the sensitivity around ICE and CBP, for my part, in introducing, which was on February 11th, 45 days ago, I introduced this bill which said, we have a serious issue which everyone is concerned about. Put it aside and continue to negotiate because it's going to take a long time to sort it out, and that it had to have protections. The protections were never a part of what the bill was about, but about the future funding of those agencies. But let's free these people who are being hammered and pilloried and not being paid when they're doing the work that they have. That was the scene. Events, if you can't move with events, my God, we are not stuck in concrete here. We have to be sensitive to what happens, the murder of 2 American citizens.
Well, and as there's a couple of us here who are members of the Judiciary Committee, and since that time, we have had before us the head of the Department of Justice, the head of, the former head of the Department of Homeland Security, and there has been no action from those departments to rein in, to investigate, to prosecute that lawless behavior by federal agents on our streets. So that has increased our concern about how we put guardrails around this paramilitary force that has been deployed to American streets. Look, no one on this side of the aisle wants to withhold pay from TSA agents. That's why we've been trying to push forward the legislative proposal that you suggested and that the Senate unanimously adopted last night. But we now have admissions from the White House and from administrators there that there has been a choice by this administration not to pay TSA agents. Fortunately, I understand that, maybe while we've been here, the president has signed an order directing that TSA agents be paid going forward. But it's just outrageous that a simple bipartisan solution that solves a problem for the American
Unanimously.
people is being rejected by Speaker Johnson and some of the fringe extremists in his group. I thank you for all of your work on
Thank
this,
you.
and I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scanlon. Mr. Roy, before I recognize you, I would like to get a clarification from Chairman Cole. Ms. Scanlon said Coast Guard service members are not being paid. My understanding is that is incorrect.
I think that is incorrect. Just as the president was able to pull a rabbit out of a hat during the last year's shutdown, keep the military paid, They found a way to pay the personnel, but not the support personnel, not the civilian employees. So
That's right.
it's one of these areas, and it's clearly not the preferred way. I mean, there ought to be passed legislation, appropriations bills to do that.
Uniformed
There- there
personnel
are-
are being paid.
I know there are form letters going around because I've had constituents contact me, and I think it's important that we make it clear that our service members are being paid.
Right, but,
So-
but just to clarify, not everybody in the Coast Guard is being.
No,
No,
and
it's
he-
the
and Mr.
uniformed,
Cole said-
uniformed
Mis-
personnel are.
Mr. Cole said that. He stated it very clearly. Mr. Roy, you recognize.
I think Chairwoman, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Cole, is it true that the United States House of Representatives, Republicans, have sent over to the United States House multiple times full funding for the Department of Homeland Security, including all operations?
I assume you mean United States Senate, and yes, it
Yeah,
is.
sorry. And in sending it over to the United States Senate, is it not true that the 53 Republicans of the Senate have multiple times voted for full funding for the Department of Homeland Security?
I believe that's the case.
So therefore, is it not true that there are precisely 7 human beings in the entire world that are holding up funding for the men and women who are serving our country in Border Patrol, in ICE, in FEMA, in TSA, and every other aspect of the Department of Homeland Security? 7 individuals necessary, 7 Democrats in the Senate necessary to get
May
to
only
60
be
votes.
5. I believe at least 1, I think 2 Democrats have voted. So it's a pretty substantial sort of mid-50s majority to fund the government.
So to repeat, we've had some Democrats interested in continuing to do the job, 53 Republicans, so we've had 5, 6, 7 Democrats necessary in order to actually do the job of funding the important function of the Department of Homeland Security. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So let's just be very clear about who is holding up any funding necessary for the people in this country to have a secure country when we've had multiple terrorist attacks since this funding dispute began, since we've had conflict in Iran, since we've had issues at our border. And I would note, for example, a CBP support employee saying, quote, "The Senate bill paid TSA, but thousands of CBP and ICE professional staff will not be paid. The last paid workday for me was February 13th. Now Senate on paid vacation until April 13th, that is guaranteed for 2 months, no pay. Very likely we won't be paid until May if Johnson lets this bill pass." ICE civilian employee, quote, "I have a huge favor. When you guys report on the fact that ICE is funded through OB3 funds, can you please make it known that support staff, i.e. mission support, OPA, et cetera, is not getting paid?" Is that true, Mr. Cole?
That's absolutely true. It's one of the reasons why you should do the complete bill instead of trying to pick and choose, because you always miss somebody. There's somebody being paid in another way, and it's just not. I mean, part of the essence of this problem is nobody reads an appropriation bill and likes everything in it. And if you get to pick and choose what you like, no appropriations bill would ever be passed. You pass the full bill, you balance it off, and that's the appropriate way to do it. Substantial majorities, bipartisan majorities in each chamber have done that. This is really a Senate rule that has held up complete funding of the government.
Would I be correct when I observe that when the ranking member discusses 85% of ICE and Border Patrol operations being funded or something to that effect, that the vast majority or all of that is coming through OBBB funds?
Again, I wouldn't presume to speak for my friend, the ranking member, but that would be my understanding, that that's where the majority of that money is coming from.
So to the extent that there is funding going to the men and women in Border Patrol and ICE today to carry out their job, that funding is entirely or predominantly coming through OBB, to the best of our knowledge.
That's correct, and it wasn't what it was designed to do originally.
Correct.
It was meant to better technology, finishing the border wall, things of that nature.
How many Democrats voted for the OBB?
None.
None. So to be very clear, the funds that are going for Border Patrol and ICE operations was not supported by Democrats.
Correct.
Democrats today refuse to fund through the normal appropriations process any funding for ICE or Border Patrol to be able to carry out the functions of defending the United States of America. And to be clear, that since that lapse of funding, we've had material terrorist attacks on our soil. We've had the murder of Sheridan Gorman by a person who was here, who came in here illegally in 2023 under the previous administration, who is a criminal, who was released, and who murdered and shot a student in Chicago. And this stuff continues to operate because our colleagues on the other side of the aisle flat out refuse to do the job of funding the operations necessary to secure the United States of America. I support the Speaker in making sure that we do our job right now to send back to the Senate a bill that will fully fund these operations so that we can get busy defending this country when we need to do it and make sure that the people on the streets are safe and secure. I yield back.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, Mr.
point of
Brewer.
clarification.
Yes, sir.
I want to know how many Republican senators voted against the bill that we're asking to be considered today in lieu of the continuing resolution? How many Republican senators objected to basically the bill that Mr. Lauro? None. None.
Madam Chair, was there a roll call vote in the Senate, or was this conducted in the middle of the night by voice vote?
This was passed at around.
By voice in the middle of the night.
By voice.
You control the Senate.
Anyone could have dissented.
You control the agenda
What?
in the Senate. And the person who's holding up
Mr.
paying
McGovern?
people is the Speaker of the House.
McGovern.
5 Democrats refused to actually do the job for the American people.
Mr.
Yeah, and Americans are dying because you guys refuse to secure the country.
So
Mr.
stop the
McGovern,
bullshit.
You do not have the floor.